The envelope was sitting in the wrong place. That was the first thing Cora noticed. She was 7 years old and had been waiting by the reception desk of the Alderton house long enough to memorize every inch of it, and she knew, the way children know things they cannot explain, that the pale gray envelope leaning against the flower arrangement had not been there 20 minutes ago. She didn't say anything yet. She just watched it. The lobby of Alderton House smelled like cedar and lemon polish and the faint ghost of pipe tobacco that clung to every room where Vincent Alderton had ever spent more than an hour. He had built the place 43 years ago, before Cora was born, before her mother was born, before most of the people now filling the dining room for his retirement celebration had even thought about becoming lawyers. The house wasn't really a house anymore. It had been converted into a private club for the firm, a place where partners held dinners and out-of-town clients were wined and kept comfortable. But it still had his furniture, his portrait above the fireplace, his name on the brass plate beside the front door. Vincent Alderton himself stood near the window, at the far end of the entrance hall, glass in hand, laughing at something the man beside him had said. He was 68 years old, silver-haired, and had the particular posture of someone who had spent 4 decades in courtrooms. Spine straight, chin slightly lifted, as if he were always just about to speak and fully expected to be heard. He wore a dark jacket with a burgundy pocket square and looked, Cora thought, like the kind of man who appeared in the backgrounds of important photographs. She was here because her mother was here. Her mother, Janet, was a paralegal at Alderton Burke, who had worked directly under Vincent for 11 years. Janet was currently somewhere in the dining room helping coordinate the catered service, because that was the kind of thing Janet did. She arrived early, stayed late, made sure things ran properly, and rarely got thanked for any of it. She had brought Cora along because the sitter had canceled, and because Vincent himself had said, when Janet apologized over the phone, that children were always welcome at Alderton House. He had sounded like he meant it. Cora picked up the envelope. It was heavier than she expected. Not dramatically heavy, not the weight of something dangerous. She wouldn't have had words for that yet, but denser than a regular letter. The flap was sealed. There was no name written on the front, which seemed wrong to her in the specific way that small wrongnesses bothered children, completely, quietly, without proportion. She turned it over. Nothing on the back either. Put that down. The voice came from behind her, low and very controlled. Cora turned. The woman standing near the coat closet was someone Cora had noticed earlier in the evening, mostly because she'd been standing near Vincent when everyone arrived and shaking hands with the kind of practiced ease that meant she did it often. She was somewhere in her 40s, dressed in a charcoal blazer over a silk blouse, dark hair pulled back. Her name tag read Renata, but Cora had not been close enough to read the last name. Cora looked at the envelope in her hand. Then she looked at the woman. "I found it here," Cora said. "I know where you found it," the woman said. "Leave it where it was." "There's no name on it," Cora said. Renata crossed the lobby in 4 brisk steps and took the envelope from Cora's hands, not roughly but firmly, with the confidence of someone taking back something that was theirs. She set it against the flower arrangement exactly as it had been. Then she looked at Cora for a moment with an expression that wasn't quite a smile. "It's a card for Mr. Alderton," she said, "from the firm. You shouldn't be touching things that aren't yours." She walked away before Cora could answer. Cora stood beside the flower arrangement and looked at the envelope. It sat there, pale and blank, leaning just slightly against the base of a white orchid. Her mother appeared from the hallway to the left, holding an empty serving tray and looking distracted in the specific way she looked when she was counting things in her head. "Cora, why aren't you in the dining room?" "I was just standing here," Cora said. Janet glanced at the lobby, saw nothing concerning, and put a hand briefly on Cora's shoulder. "Come sit at the side table, okay? Don't wander. I need another 20 minutes and then we can have dessert." "Mom," Cora said. Janet was already moving. 20 minutes, sweetheart." Cora followed her toward the dining room and then stopped just inside the doorway. The room was full. 40 or 50 people, maybe more, arranged around tables and clustered in conversational groups near the bar cart at the far wall. The partners were easy to spot. They were the ones whose names Cora had heard her mother say over years of dinner table conversation. The ones Janet had opinions about. The ones who sent fruit baskets at Christmas and forgot to say please when they called the office after hours. Some of them had brought spouses. A few had brought adult children. Renata was standing near the head table, speaking to a man Cora didn't recognize. As Cora watched, Renata turned toward the lobby, turned back, and then excused herself from the conversation and walked back out through the entrance hall. Cora counted to 10 and followed her. The lobby was empty except for the 2 of them and the coat closet attendant, a young man in a black vest who was reading something on his phone and not paying attention to anything else. Renata was at the reception desk. She had the envelope in her hand again. As Cora watched from the doorway, Renata opened the flap. It hadn't been sealed after all, or it had come unsealed, reached inside, and removed something small. She looked at it for a moment. Then she put it back, resealed the flap as well as she could, and replaced the envelope against the flower arrangement. Her hands, Cora noticed, were not entirely steady. Cora went back to the dining room and sat at the side table her mother had indicated, behind a pillar and half hidden by a decorative screen, and thought about what she had just seen. She thought about the weight of the envelope. She thought about the way Renata had looked at what was inside. She thought about the fact that the envelope had no name on it and was sitting in a place where Vincent Alderton was almost certain to see it before the evening ended, because the only way from the dining room to the main staircase passed directly by the reception desk. She thought about the way Renata Zumhe had said, "Leave it," where it was in a voice that was trying to sound like nothing. At 8:45, Vincent's colleague and longtime friend Barry Okafor stood up at the head table and said that it was time for the presentation portion of the evening. There were speeches. There was a video montage assembled by someone in the firm's communications office, full of photographs and clips from cases, and the occasional courtroom sketch that made the room laugh. Vincent was visibly moved. He stood at the podium and made a gracious speech about service and legacy and the extraordinary people he had been privileged to work beside, and the room applauded him several times. At the end of it, Barry Okafor said that the firm had one more thing for Vincent, a token of 43 years, and then Renata walked in from the lobby. She was carrying the envelope. Cora stood up from the side table. She was 7 years old, and she had been brought here because the sitter canceled, and she had spent most of the evening being invisible, which was a skill she had developed early and practiced often. And now she was standing up in a room full of lawyers at a retirement party, and she did not have a plan. She had a feeling. It was the same feeling she got when her mother was about to cry before she actually started, that particular shift in the air before something changed. She walked out from behind the screen. Barry Okafor was saying something about 43 years of dedication. Renata had reached the head table. Vincent was smiling. The envelope was extended toward him in Renata's hands. "Don't touch it," Cora said. Her voice was not loud. It was a 7-year-old's voice in a large room, and it should not have carried. But there was a particular silence just then between the end of Barry's sentence and the beginning of whatever came next, and Cora's voice landed in it like a stone in still water. 20 or 30 heads turned. Vincent looked at her. He had very blue eyes, and they were the kind that seemed to actually look at a person rather than past them. "I'm sorry," he said, with the courtesy of someone who genuinely wanted to understand. "Don't touch the envelope," Cora said. She was aware that everyone was looking at her. She was aware that her heart was going very fast. She said it again anyway, because she had started now, and stopping seemed worse. She put something in it and then took it out and put it back. The room was completely quiet. Renata lowered her hand slightly. Something moved across her face. Not guilt exactly, not yet, more like a recalibration, the face of someone deciding which version of events to commit to. "She's a child," Renata said. The tone was precise, patient, faintly sad, the tone of an adult managing an awkward moment graciously. "She's been wandering around unsupervised all evening. She doesn't know what she saw." "I was in the lobby," Cora said. "You told me to put it down, and I did. Then you came back and you opened it, and you took something out and looked at it and put it back in. That's not what happened." "Your hands were shaking," Cora said. A long silence. Janet appeared from somewhere behind the dining tables, her face a combination of mortification and maternal alarm. Cora, I'm so sorry. She's had a very long evening. I'll take her." "Janet." Vincent's voice was quiet, but it stopped the room. He was looking at Cora. "What did you see her take out?" "I don't know," Cora said honestly. "It was small. I couldn't see from where I was standing." "How small?" Cora thought about it. "Like a packet. Flat, like a little paper packet." Barry Okafor said very carefully, "Vincent." "I heard her," Vincent said. He still hadn't moved. He looked at the envelope in Renata's hands. Then he looked at Renata. "Open it," he said. The shift in Renata's expression was slight but total. A door closing behind the eyes. "I really don't think we need to make this into something," she said. "It's a retirement gift, Vincent. It's from the partnership. There's a card and a certificate." "Then open it," Vincent said. "If that's what's in it." "Vincent, this is Renata." His voice had not changed in volume. It had changed in everything else. She didn't move. Barry Okafor stood up. He reached across the table and Renata pulled the envelope back slightly. A reflex, barely a gesture, but the room saw it. Barry stopped. Vincent said very quietly, "Give it to me." "You should know," Renata said. And her voice had changed now too, flattened into something careful and distant, that whatever anyone thinks they saw tonight, I have done nothing but work for this firm for 18 years. 18 years. And a child. Give me the envelope, Vincent said. She set it on the table. Vincent didn't open it immediately. He looked at it for a moment. Then he picked it up and handed it to Barry Okafor, who looked at him. Barry, he said, would you like to do the honors? Barry opened the envelope. He reached inside. He withdrew a card, a small folded certificate, and something else, a flat paper packet, sealed, with no markings. He held it up. The room was very still. I don't know what that is, Renata said. Her voice had gone careful and precise, the voice of someone managing testimony. I have never seen that before. You were just holding this envelope, Barry said. The child is lying. Cora, from across the room, said nothing. She had said what she had to say. She stood beside her mother, who had one hand on her shoulder, and watched. Barry Okafor opened the paper packet with one finger, very carefully. Inside was a fine white powder. The room broke open all at once. The next portion of the evening was not part of any agenda. Several partners stepped back from the head table. Someone called out. Barry Okafor set the packet down on an empty side plate and did not touch it again. A man named Franklin, who worked in the firm's insurance division and had once been an EMT, appeared from somewhere and said very clearly that no one should touch anything, and could someone please call the authorities. And he said this with enough certainty that 3 people simultaneously reached for their phones. Vincent sat down. He sat in his chair at the head of his retirement dinner and looked at the side plate with the small paper packet, and he was very still. For a long time. Someone brought him a glass of water. He looked at it without drinking it, and then he set it aside. Renata was escorted to a chair near the coat closet by 2 of the senior partners. She did not resist. She sat with her hands folded in her lap and her expression composed in the particular way of someone who has decided that composure is the only card left to play. The police arrived in 14 minutes. Cora sat with her mother at the side table behind the screen while everything happened around them. Janet had her arm around Cora's shoulders, and she was very quiet. She had stopped apologizing. At some point, she pressed her cheek briefly against the top of Cora's head, which was something she did when she was relieved about something. One of the officers, a woman with short-cropped gray hair and a patient manner, came and spoke to Cora. She asked Cora to describe what she had seen from the beginning, and Cora described it exactly as it had happened. The envelope in the wrong place, the weight of it. Renata telling her to put it down, coming back to watch from the doorway, the unsealed flap, the small packet, the unsteady hands. The officer wrote everything down. She didn't simplify Cora's words or rephrase them back as something smaller. She asked a few clarifying questions, and then she thanked Cora and said she had done a very good job. I didn't do anything, Cora said. I just said what I saw. That's what a good job looks like, the officer said. The powder in the packet was later identified, though not that evening. That evening, there were only questions and the careful movement of people doing their work. The coat closet attendant, when asked, remembered seeing Renata arrive early and spend approximately 8 minutes near the reception area before any other guests arrived. Security footage from the lobby camera confirmed this. It also confirmed Cora's account in every detail. Renata had been passed over for a senior partnership the previous winter, a decision Vincent had been part of. She had said nothing at the time. She had continued attending firm events and handling her files and bringing coffee into meetings with a face that showed nothing at all, and apparently no one had thought to look more carefully. Vincent, when he was interviewed briefly before the officers left for the evening, said that he had spent 43 years learning to read rooms and read people, and that he had been completely deceived for 18 of those years by someone who was very good at being invisible in plain sight. When he was asked about Cora, he was quiet for a moment. She's Janet's daughter, he said. She's been here all evening sitting at a side table being patient while the adults ignored her. He paused. That was a mistake on our part, not hers. Cora and her mother left Alderton House just before 11. The catered dinner had not been finished. The cake, a dark chocolate layer cake with gold lettering across the top, was still sitting on the dessert table, uncut, which seemed to Cora like the most melancholy part of the whole evening. She mentioned this to her mother in the car. Janet laughed, which was the first time she had laughed all night. It came out slightly too loud, and then she put a hand over her mouth and then laughed again. You're right, she said. That is the saddest part. He seemed nice, Cora said. Mr. Alderton. He is nice, Janet said. He's not always good at noticing the people in the room, but he's nice. Cora thought about this. He noticed me. Janet was quiet for a moment. He did, she said. Eventually. 2 days later, a card arrived at their apartment by courier. It was a plain cream envelope, and this one had a name on the front. Cora's full name, written in careful, even handwriting, Miss Cora Elaine Thibodeau. Inside was a handwritten note on firm letterhead, which said that Mr. Alderton was grateful for her clear eyes and her courage, and that the firm would be honored to place a contribution in her name toward whatever educational pursuits she chose to follow when the time came. There was a second sheet folded behind the note. It was the retirement certificate that had been inside the original envelope, the one Barry Okafor had removed before the rest, with a small sticky note attached in the same handwriting. They printed, too. This one had your name on it from the beginning, even before you knew it. Cora read it twice and then set both papers carefully on her desk, beside her spelling workbook where she could see them from her bed. Her mother appeared in the doorway. "Dinner's ready. What are you doing?" "Reading," Cora said. Janet came over and looked at the papers and read them without saying anything. Then she straightened up. "Wash your hands," she said, in a voice that was doing its best to sound normal. Cora pushed back her chair and went to wash her hands, and behind her she could hear her mother doing something that might have been clearing her throat, or might not have been. Some things Cora was learning. You saw by paying attention to the parts that didn't quite fit, the envelope without a name, the hands that shook for no stated reason, the person in the corner who had been there all along, waiting to be asked. You just had to be the one willing to say what you saw.